Palestinian territories have been under, of course, Israeli occupation since 1967. And despite the agreement to divide these territories into A, B, and C different regions under different military control, some are controlled by the Israelis, some are controlled by the Palestinian Authority, Israel has never respected that division of labor. And for Israel, it seems the usual. They justify everything in the name of their own perception, their own definition of security. So they go in and out at will. And they have reneged almost on every aspect of agreement since the early 90s, the Oslo process and so on. Several agreements that are totally ignored. Essentially, they're dead, they're gone. But the expectation from the Palestinians remains the same. The expectations from Israel are totally gone. So Israel goes in and out, supposedly, to suppress Palestinian resistance whenever they see an act of resistance. The timing of this one, the magnitude of this last invasion, if you will, or intrusion into the Jenin, the city of Jenin, and particularly the refugee camp inside the city of Jenin, which is a very tiny camp. As a matter of fact, it's only 0.16 square miles. So it's smaller than a tiny neighborhood in Washington, D.C., inhabited by up to about estimated 20,000 people. So you could imagine the concentration of civilians in that small piece of territory. And the reason they are targeting the Jenin Refugee Camp because of its symbolic nature. It's not your typical refugee camp, and Jenin is not your typical Palestinian city under occupation. Somehow, the city has emerged as the symbol of Palestinian resistance to occupation. They are not willing to give up. Young people, frustrated with both the Israeli occupation and the negligence of the Palestinian Authority that is supposed to control the Jenin area, have taken matters into their own hands. So they have armed themselves, and they do engage in acts of resistance. And Israel is refusing to accept this as a fact. In other words, they want to use it as an example that this symbolic city of resistance has to be demolished, has to be controlled one way or the other. This is the rationale for a whole battalion of Israeli soldiers, between 1,000 to 2,000 soldiers, invading 0.16 square miles of Palestinian territory. In the sense that settlements, Jewish settlements on Palestinian territory, is the raison d'etre of Israel's occupation. As a matter of fact, it's the raison d'etre of Zionism itself. It's essentially a colonization movement, taking somebody else's land and building a state on it, regardless of the aspiration of the native inhabitants of that land. So this is the concept that motivates Israel in its control of the territories. They don't see the native Palestinians as natives. They don't see them entitled to any rights, particularly political rights, rights to control their fate, rights to control their land. So they feel they are there at the mercy of Israeli largesse, as if they are doing him a favor by allowing him to live under Israeli occupation. So that explains why this repeated again and again experience every few months, every few weeks, as a matter of fact, we have to have a clash, either in a refugee camp in Jenin, or a refugee camp in Nablus, or a refugee camp in Hebron, because the essence of Israel's presence in Palestine is basically colonial in nature, It's basically control of land, and it's basically denial of rights for the local population. I don't think if you have an ounce of objectivity, you will conclude that these attacks on Jenin have been successful. They have definitely been massive. They have definitely been violent. They have definitely been oppressive, but they have not achieved their objective goals. The objective from the very beginning was essentially what? To end resistance to Israeli occupation. Now, 12, 13, 14 Palestinians have been killed. There is a debate how many of them were fighters resisting Israel's occupation, how many were civilians. But frankly, the occupation hasn't ended, okay? And resistance to it has not ended. So, and the fact that they were ended in such a hurry, you could tell that the Israeli government was essentially fighting a PR war. The attack on Jenin was a politically motivated PR exercise, was not a military campaign. Of course, Israel has the military power. If they wanted to, they could erase the 0.16 square miles known as the Jenin camp. They could have erased it off the surface of the earth, but they couldn't because they are afraid of the global outcry and the reaction worldwide. So they did move quickly, they ended quickly, they declared victory, they put the banner, Netanyahu put the banner behind him, reminiscent of President Bush in the old days about the Iraq war, declared victory and went tucked his tail between his legs and ran home. That is self-declared victory. That's not a victory. Objectively speaking, the Jenin problem is there. The only thing it succeeded in doing is postpone the next invasion for a few more months.